Financial disclaimer. The information provided in this stream is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional financial or investment advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the content presented here is based on our personal opinions and experiences. Investing in stocks and other financial instruments involves risk, including the potential loss of capital. Any investment decisions you make are solely your own responsibility, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment choices. The content we share on this stream may not be accurate, complete, or up to date. Market conditions and financial regulations can change rapidly, and we cannot guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information presented. We do not endorse or promote any specific stocks, companies, or investment strategies. Any actions you take based on the content of this stream are at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses or damages that may occur as a result. Always remember that past performance is not indicative of future results, and no investment is guaranteed to be profitable. Make informed decisions and consider your risk tolerance before investing any funds. By accessing and using this stream, you acknowledge and agree that we are not responsible for any investment decisions you make as a result of the content presented. You are encouraged to seek advice from qualified financial professionals for personalized guidance. Please invest responsibly and only with money you can afford to lose.
Hey man, just found the next guaranteed multi-bagger.
Hey man, you found another one? What is it this time?
Come check this out.
Okay, next please. How can I help you, young man?
We want to short Nvidia. This AI crap is not here to stay. It's hyped up and we feel confident and smarter than everyone else.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check and it's gone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Welcome. Johnny, how are you?
I'm good. I'm thinking about shorting Nvidia.
Yeah, that's strong move. You know, they can't just keep beating earnings. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. But no, good week for them. And you remember we were talking on Tuesday that they were a bit down the day before earnings, and then what did it end, like 17% up?
Something like that, yeah, because it was it was a big swing, but I think people were just getting nervous before. But I don't know. I was on Twitter. You could just follow Nancy Pelosi bought calls. She had calls. How can you go wrong if you follow Nancy Pelosi?
No, that's a good point.
That lady does no wrong.
She is one of the best investors in the world.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know how you can do wrong with that, but yeah, honestly, I think there's a huge runway for Nvidia still. To be honest, I mean, if they now they've made $60 billion in revenue or something crazy. I mean, it's insane. I mean, is it really worth? It really is it worth $2 trillion for market cap? I don't know about that, but I mean, there's other companies that I feel like are more like wildly valued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at least Nvidia, I mean, they have such a huge market possibly.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a look at the chart the other day, and it's very tricky to go against that chart.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have them in my. Yeah, I mean, look at this chart.
That's a beautiful chart.
It is a beautiful chart. Even on the 1 year, like it never goes. Like, I mean, look at these. Look at how small these pullbacks are.
Yeah. Yeah, you can say they are just sideline, you know?
Yeah.
Sideways.
And even in this like overbought territory, it's just pushing right through like nothing.
Yeah. And then when you get an earnings beat on such a big company that it's also dragging the entire market with it, it looks good. And for anyone who hasn't watched us before, like the video and the intro stuff are usually just a joke. We're not planning to short Nvidia.
Oh, I am. Puts all the way.
Yeah.
No,
But
yeah, definitely don't take us as advice. Whoops, I didn't mean to click that.
but these types of companies, like you can, I guess, categorize them a little bit like Tesla and stuff like that. They are very hard to predict. Of course, this one is making a lot of money, so it's different. Maybe Tesla is not a good example, but
Yeah, I was gonna say
on the
because
chart.
yeah, I agree with what you're saying because Nvidia, like where it's right now, is it totally far fetched? I actually don't think it is. Like I can see why people on even a valuation measurement. I mean, obviously you're taking growth into consideration, but you could argue that it's not like unfairly priced based on just like straight revenues and even the earnings. I mean, and that the other thing too is that there's some people I've heard arguing that AI is going to be like the next big market, like as in like back in like the 30s and 40s and well probably more 40s and 50s, like chemistry became like a new industry. Like there wasn't like a chemicals industry, and all of a sudden now there was. And same in the 90s, all of a sudden the internet became like a new industry. There's a lot of people arguing that AI will be a new industry, and there's going to be a bunch of different players in that industry. But to argue that what the ceiling is for that, I don't think you can right now. I mean, I'm sure it'll probably get to a bubble. I imagine this will bubble up like the internet, in the like 1999. It'll probably be somewhat similar to that. But at the same time, right now, people just piling into Nvidia. Like I don't necessarily think it's the wrong move. Now, obviously, like he's saying, don't take this as investment advice. Like, don't go buy Nvidia right now and be like, that's a great move, because I have no idea. But this is one of the ones where like normally I would consider that like stupidly risky. It's not nearly as risky as some of the other prospects that like have this kind of trend upwards, like Tesla, for instance.
Yeah. But did you see Barry's tweet?
No, I did not.
He was tweeting, maybe it's time for a market correction again. Something like that.
Yeah, he's always tweeting that.
Well, I haven't heard from him in a while, though.
Yeah, and sorry, guys, I had issues with Excel, so that's why it took us a little bit to get off. So I'm sorry we started late, but at least we're up and running. So I'm happy we're up and running, and I don't even know where. What's Burry's thing now? Is it still Cassandra or whatever?
Yeah. He usually deletes his tweets, right?
Yeah, I don't even think it's still up, to be honest. But oh well, whatever.
No, yeah. Nah, he was basically just hinting that we might go down a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was with Nvidia in mind,
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the dashboard, and I haven't gone through my daily, weekly movers, and even the insiders, guys. So we'll go through the actual screening process today, pick out some companies. Johnny said he found a few tickers that he wants to go through. Maybe it'll overlap. I didn't look at them on purpose. We'll see if we pick the same ones. We tend to do that just because of the value style of us.
Yeah.
I'm already drinking. 12:30. Stressed out about an Excel program. On a Saturday.
That's the life we are living right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's so annoying. It takes a while to figure out these errors and stuff. Google Sheets is the same.
Oh, I'm sure.
And when you try to solve it, you always get like, oh, have you tried to turn off your computer and turn it back on and stuff like that, So it's hard to find a good solution.
Just so it's not so bright. No, I know they give you like advice, like is your computer plugged in? Like.
Yeah.
I like the ranch, by the way. The background there.
Oh yeah, I'm in the Wild West today.
Yeah, it looks nice.
I was thinking mix it. Last week was some dragons and stuff, so horses is the thing today.
Those some thoroughbreds.
Yeah.
They're very nice.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna move out west to somewhere nice and warm.
Yeah,
I
might join you on that.
Beautiful out there.
I just want to. I want to stay away from alligators and snakes and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least in the States, like if you stay away, I mean, where that is, I guess you'd have to worry about maybe like scorpions and snakes, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
whatever.
And we'll be fine. You can't get everything the way you want, right?
Yeah.
And I've lived in Australia, so I'm a bit used to. In Australia, everything kills you.
Yeah, that's serious.
And-
Australia's no joke.
It's no joke. And guess which animal that attacked me?
I don't even know.
Birds.
Oh, birds, really?
Of all the animals, I was attacked by birds.
Yeah, I wouldn't. What kind of bird?
I don't know. I don't know. It was a bird. That's all. I didn't even see it coming. It came from behind me.
Well, you guys heard it here. In Australia, watch out for birds.
Yeah, seriously.
Maybe they can make a sequel to The Birds, by Hitchcock. It'll be you in Australia.
Yeah. I will participate if someone contact me about making something like that.
Yeah, right. All right. So just to go through the daily movers, looks like natural gas has gotten a little bit back. I mean, it was at lows, so I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say it's just kind of bouncing off a bottom, but maybe we found a bottom here, which is actually the same as a 5-year bottom if you look at the chart. So, probably not unreasonable.
Remember we looked at them on that the spike up there, the small spike up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this historically, I mean, this is, if you're thinking about getting into natural gas, this is a 10-year chart. This has only happened twice. So,
yeah,
I think that screams pretty bullish.
Yeah.
This is a 20-year chart, and it's only happened 3 times.
Yeah.
So.
And for some stocks that we have discussed in the past, this is good.
Yeah, and so for you guys who are tuning in, when it's one way to just kind of like maybe if I see a natural gas company that pops up on my screener or whatnot, I might be more apt to look into those right now because they're probably cyclically at lows. And I'll also go through some of the companies I've already looked at, especially if I put them on deck. And this is a good time just to kind of take a look at things because you never know. This could be a real bottom for some of these companies, and you can see some huge spikes just on a cyclical basis.
Yeah.
Coco, you been consuming chocolate, man? Is this you?
Yeah.
Causing the spike here?
I think it's me alone, actually. I
look
love
at
chocolate.
this chart.
Yeah.
I don't think I pulled up Coco. This is ridiculous. What's going on with chocolate right now?
People like it.
Holy smokes.
That's a good chart.
This is ridiculous. Who's trading cocoa commodities right now? Anybody? It's like something that doesn't even cross my mind. Can we buy like what companies are public that are chocolate? This is why Buffett bought See's Candy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like chocolate?
Oh, we have people in the chat. NASCAR is back here.
Time to look at the connection between Chinese stocks and money laundering. NASCAR, there's always a good reason to look at some of the Chinese stocks because some of them, they bounce off such crazy lows. What was it? Was it it was like HD or something like that? You remember that one? ADHD or something like that? And it was like, it went up like 1,000 or 10,000% like a day.
Yeah.
Something crazy. And then it just drops right back down. But I totally agree, NASCAR. There is something shady going on there. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. Pull up the old dash or the daily movers here. We can scroll through, see if there's anything. Yeah, and like I said, I haven't, well, actually I was talking to Johnny before, but I hadn't gotten a chance, so I missed some of the stuff this week. So we also probably will find some stuff on the weekly movers. Actually, a lot happened this week. I just didn't get a chance to look at too much. On Barnes & Noble Education, there's some new transcripts out, which kind of just confirms actually where I thought things were headed, at least in terms of the overall kind of feel of the transcripts and the actual hearings themselves, which we'll go through some of it. And I actually saw online, I was just Googling the whole, inclusive access and the change. And I found a few news articles actually that came out this week that were saying, despite the fact that the Department of Education's talking about changing it, that there's been quite a bit of pushback now too. So the news story is changing. So we'll see if anybody starts to take any credence with it. I mean, the stock's kind of been trickling down here, but there's been no necessarily positive news. Earnings are coming up, so I imagine if there's positive earnings, because the other big thing is, regardless of what the Department of Education decides, which, I mean, we've gone over it, and I'll point out other reasons why I still think the opt-out program makes the most sense, just economically. Opt-in really makes me think we're going to return to how things were before any of this had changed in the first place, which just means that access to stuff's going to be limited, and the publishers are once again going to have a monopoly on controlling the prices. So you're going to see textbook prices start to increase again, similar to how they did before the opt-out programs were put in, which really doesn't make any sense to me. But a lot of people had also pointed out online is you can't always trust the government to do the smartest thing. So we'll see. Obviously, and with all that being said, I still think the most important part is they have to get to consensus. And as of now, in the last transcript, 6 people, which how many, do you know how many are in there, Johnny? How many actually vote?
No, they never said, and he even missed one thumb down, so he went like 5 to 6 people, and I assume that's a lot.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere earlier on that I thought there was maybe 14 or 15 people who voted or something like that. So if you already have 6 people with their thumbs down for that, most likely this isn't going to reach consensus even by the next trial, which is coming up. I mean, I think it's March 4th or something. It's that week in March, so it's like 2 weeks out. So even then, if they don't reach consensus by then, this is all just going to drag on, which brings me to my original point with BNED. If that continues to drag on like that, then they're going to continue to make the same earnings that they have because the law hasn't changed, so they can continue to do first day complete. They're going to continue to generate the free cash flow from it, and if they use any of that free cash flow to deleverage themselves, the chance of them restructuring their debt soon is going to go up. And that's the big thing with BNED. Like, everyone can talk about, regardless of this whole Department of Education change, I also want to go into some of the numbers and just talk about, even, let's say, worst case scenario, and it becomes opt-in, and all of a sudden you don't have just, maybe the guarantee of knowing how many people are going to be in there. Even if we can just guesstimate some numbers based on how many people would opt in, there's still enough room, I think, for them to grow throughout the different colleges they're at, that first day complete would still be a success, and it would still generate even more revenue and earnings than it does today. So
I found something interesting in the transcript that came from the opt-in side, and it was in the what do they call it when they open for the public in the end?
Sorry, my animals here are all at my door behind me. I don't know if you could see this. They're all making noise. What did you say?
No, the when they open for the public to comment in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in that section of one of the PDFs. There was a guy talking about how great of an experience the opt-in program or solution was at his university, and he said that even with an opt-in, 75% of the students choose to opt in.
Yeah, to their point, if the opt-in side ends up winning, which I don't think they're going to win, I think it's going to be this mix of transparency and because no matter what, you have to reach consensus. So the only way the school side, which is trying to be more economically sound by being able to purchase in bulk and being able to predict how many textbooks and things they're going to need, because that's and it's actually funny because the opt-in side totally contradicts themselves, because there's a section, if you look in the first PDF of this recent group, so they're talking about the meal plans, which is one of the things that happened. They talk about that before the books and supplies, and they were worried that meal plans weren't going to be efficient. So one of the guys who's the most proponent guy for the opt-in idea totally contradicts himself, because when he's talking about meal plans, he said we can't change the meal plans because if we change the meal plans to like a swipe and pay as you go, then how would it be economically feasible for these cafeterias to run, because they wouldn't know how much food that they're going to need. So you have to basically pay up front first so you can predict how much you're going to need so you don't waste and lose money. But then he goes on to say for books and tuition, no, we don't need to know how much up front because it's better that the students have the choice. But then the schools can't predict how much books and tuition and supplies they're going to need. So then once again, it's going to raise the price. And if it's going to raise the price, then it's going to be hard to compete with these outside vendors, because other people are going to be able to offer all these books with different structures of their businesses. They're going to be able to offer discounts. Number one, it's going to lead to less people getting the books, and we're going to go right back to where we were before all this. And remember, the whole reason this was changed by law was to help people who didn't have good access to the materials. This was to allow them to use their Title IV funds to get access to these materials. So we're going to go back on that, and then we're going to make it more expensive by offering it to, it's going to go back to a similar thing where the publishers are really the ones in control, because some of these things like First Day Complete, they're not going to be able to be as efficient as they are. So it's funny that he's arguing that for food costs that we need to have this done up front, because that way we can predict how much food the students are going to need, so we're not wasting money in product. But for tuition and books, he thinks the exact opposite. It doesn't matter if we can predict it, because it's just better for the students to have choice. And I just every time I hear someone from the opposition side talk, I just don't think they understand like how easily they contradict themselves. And I'm not saying I don't think the students should have the choice, but the whole point of it is you do have choice. If you continue as an opt-out model, you do have the choice to opt out. And I am all for, and I think this is the way it should be. It should be extremely apparent that you are able to opt out. Like, and I know some of the opposition side always says there's bad actors, which I'm not saying there's probably not. I guess there's probably a few schools out there that do this. Do I think the majority of them are doing it legitly? Yes, I do. I'm sure 95% of the schools are being fair and honest and trying to provide a good price point for this materials for their students, and they're happy that this is working for them. But, for the 5 or 10% that are taking advantage of it, if all of a sudden you have this opt-out program where you have to be transparent about what opting out means and the benefit that can come from opting out, like, hey, if you opt out, just so you know, like, yes, you won't get your materials on day one from us guaranteed, but you can go and search, and if you're diligent and you want to put in the extra effort to go try and find these things for cheaper and take the risk of not getting them on time, that's up to you. You can do that. And I think that's reasonable. I think that's exactly how I would state it, is like, hey, yeah, if you guys want to go out there, I get it. Some professors, and I know this. Like I said, when I went to college, certain professors had stuff that you could only get through their class. So for those ones, I don't really know what that would change, because you still had to buy it directly, kind of from the professor, like it was their textbook or their online program. So I don't really know how much that will save you there. So maybe for those classes, the student would opt in, I guess, if it was an opt-in side. This is another point I thought up. So for instance, you basically just have to give authorization that at some point the schools are allowed to opt you in. That's currently one of the ways they're talking about writing it. And if that's the case, if you're going to be able to opt in, or you're going to have to authorize stuff to be able to be opt-in, wouldn't it make sense at the start of the pay period that you just say, yes, I'll opt in, because then if I want, I can use those book sources. And if at some point I want to just, opt out for certain things or not use my funds for it, I would, because I can save money that way if I want. But it would almost be advantageous to the student to opt in, because like you're basically saying there is a chance that the First Day Complete program, like if we're just using BNED, I know there's a bunch of other ones out there doing it, but if we're just talking BNED, let's say I opt in because then it allows them to do First Day Complete, And then if there's a course or a semester where I don't want to use it, I can just say no. But as long as but like, why wouldn't you give authorization in the first place? Because if it is the best option for you and you choose not to authorize the funds, well, then you can't take advantage of it and you're just screwed. You know what I mean? I just feel as a student, that would be like a poor choice. Like if all I have to do is give you the authorization, and then from that point on, I can still choose if I want to use your program, I would definitely just say, yeah, I'll allow you to use my funds, but I want to be the choice on which books I make. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still just think that I think the opposition has a real weakness towards it. I think even in an opt-in model, I still think there can be success, because one last point I wanted to make here is just pull out my handy dandy calculator here. This is going to get real scientific, guys. So I think right now it's like there's like a 70% opt-out rate, or a 70 or 80% of like people tend to opt or stay opted in, you know, in the opt-out thing. So let's just say there's 100 students, right? And let's say 80% of those opt in. That means you got 80 out of 100 students that opt in. But right now we're only in, I think it's like 200 of the possible 750 schools, right? So if you have 80 out of 100 students currently, and that makes you 61 million in free cash flow. Well, okay, let's say we do an opt-in model. In an opt-in model, people were arguing it would only be about 30 to 40% of people would opt in. So if that's the case, let's take 100 students and let's go on the low side. Let's say it's only 30. So now it's only 30 students, right? I guess I can just type in 30. But now we only have 30 students. But the thing is, this can grow because we still have 700 some schools to get into. So if only 30 students are getting in, but now we're able to multiply this number. Let's say we go from, let's just, to make numbers easy, let's just say there were 600 schools and we're in 200 of them. So that means you get to multiply this number by 3 times. That means now you have 90 students in. So what you're saying is, even in this model right now, they're generating 61 million in free cash flow. Well, if you were able to expand this from the current 200 or so schools up to the full 750, and you continue to get a 30% opt-in rate, you'd still have more people currently using the program than you do today, which means in the future they're still going to generate free cash flow. So let's say we increase this by 10. If it was 61 million in free cash flow, you increase by 6%. So now we're talking, or by 10%, it would be like 66 or 67%, or 66 or 67 million in free cash flow. That means we're still net positive. We still have positive earnings going forwards. So what that means is, basically, why would a bank come in here and not want to restructure this company? They've already proven this model will work even in an opt-in model. So I just want to point out to people that part of the reason why I'm okay with taking the risk on is because, in worst case scenario with the Department of Education, if they don't accept this to go through, which, like I said, I mean, you can look at the consensus numbers, 6 people already said they don't agree, so it's not going to get approved anytime soon anyways. But even in the long run, if it did, they're still going to generate more free cash flow than they do today, which means they're going to keep paying down their debt, which means the business is going to be more profitable historically than it's ever been. So I don't see what all this negative, like, I don't think people have just done the simple math of, even in worst case scenario, it goes to an opt-in where not a lot of people opt in, they would still be profitable if they grow and take advantage of the stores that they're already in. These are colleges they already have stores in. It's not like they have to go out and find new colleges. They're already in them. They just haven't switched a bunch of their schools over to the first day model. And if they did do it, and the other thing too is, and like I said, that's a low number. I said 30%. What happens if it's 40% opt-in? What happens if it's 50% opt-in? Now you're talking we could double or triple cash flow from where it currently is. So, because if you pull up BNED right now, you know, I got in this last trailing 12 months, 59 cents. Now that's 59 cents, but that's only 1/4 of successful first day complete, really. You know, first day complete's really just kind of getting on its feet, and this was the first time it's successful. Now, if we take this number and we're able to double it or even triple it, you know, through the multiple quarters, this is going to be able to deleverage itself, and this is going to skyrocket in price. The value of this would be totally different than what it is today. I mean, if you look at my valuation calculator right now, it puts it at 64 cents, but that's an that doesn't even take into account the most recent quarter. The way I have this set up, I look at averages. I don't look at recent quarters. Now, if I change this number here to, let's say, 59 cents, you know, it bumps it right up to $1.39, and that's just on a simple average. Now, this number could be higher, and if that's higher and they deleverage, all these numbers go up. They go up drastically. You know, if we were to put this down to, actually, this calculator might bring actually that number down if I do that way, but it doesn't matter. All I'm trying to say is if we deleverage this and we increase that number, you're going to watch the capital that this produces drastically go higher. And even in the opt-in model, I think First Day Complete allows them to spend their money a lot better, allows them to keep their predictions better. So obviously, if they continue to be opt-out, it's not even a question this thing is going to do really well. But even in worst case scenario, I still think they skirt by, and I think this is priced for bankruptcy, which is really stupid. I really think people haven't read through and really figured out what's going on here. So I still like the stock. I'd like to point that out. Obviously not a recommendation to buy. Always do your own research as well. But if you, I'm trying to present some of these numbers in the way I look at them. And granted, I get this looks ugly. You know, when I look at this, most of the companies I look at look ugly. That was the whole point of the strategy. You're not looking at companies that look green and they're super easy to predict. And, you know, I don't want these stable cash flows that like everyone else is able to see because it's already priced in. You know, the market is somewhat efficient, especially with companies that are easily able to predict. You know, I'm looking for companies that aren't easy to predict. And I just don't think most people have done the legwork here. And if you just did the simple legwork, you're going to see that this is worth a lot more. And if this book value was to increase and they were to deleverage, you know, look at historically. Like, let's say we got back to like a decent amount here. We're talking, this could be worth, what did it do? That's 2017. Let's see what 2017 would have been like on a chart here. It's worth like $10 a share. So we're talking a 10 bagger from here.
That would be something.
It would be, and obviously I'm not saying it's going to necessarily get there, but I could see them deleveraging, and if they are able to deleverage and they're able to sneak through this and just kind of push that back when they restructure, I think this is set. And obviously the other argument, I mean that's like a great case scenario for the business. The business continues to thrive and does well. A lot of guys have brought up that it looks like there's a good chance they could get bought out as well. Now, whether the buyout would succeed or not, you could argue that point, which it looks like people were comparing Cengage when Cengage almost got acquired. I think it was by McGraw, which is another big textbook institute here. And that one got blocked. But the problem with that idea is Cengage and McGraw are both textbook publishers, where BNED is not a textbook publisher. They are a middleman that sells and operates bookstores to get the supplies to people. So it's very different. If you were to mix that in, it would improve one of those businesses, but it wouldn't create a monopoly. You're not increasing, because I think right now if McGraw and Cengage was to mix together, they would have like 40% of the textbook market in the United States, and Pearson already has about 40%. So you would essentially create a duopoly. So obviously you're not trying, you know, for competitive reasons, you don't want duopolies basically, because that's not really great for competition. And it's also because people need textbooks. So, you know, you really don't want a duopoly in something where people have to get something, because then it's really easy to jack up the prices. But to improve one of those businesses by acquiring BNED, I could see Cengage or McGraw or any of those guys, it would be very advantageous for them to be able to directly send their things to schools using one of these programs. So the fact that BNED could be bought out, I don't think you could argue that that's not a great point.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of talk about that on the Courage and Conviction article, and I think they are making great points. But it's just a bit hard to. The possibility is there. That's all I'm thinking about. It's very hard to predict which route they will go and all that stuff. but I think you cover a lot here now, Dane. And what I would say about the recent transcripts now is that it didn't bring so much more new. What do you call it? Like new. We didn't learn so much new things. It was very similar to the last one. There was a bit of confusion, and I think the arguments for the opt-in model. Did you even read it? Some guy was even plugging his website a bit, right?
Yeah, some of the opt-in, like if here, I just want to pull up some of this stuff because I just want to give people an idea of what the opt-in side is saying and like what they think, this like what they think is like a reasonable argument against this because it's so poorly done. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you can tell both sides are obviously biased. But like the way some people are writing this, it's just like, was it the second or the first or last one? Do you remember?
With the website, you mean?
No, I'm talking where they're in the context of people talking about the books. Get out of here.
I think it was the first one.
Oh, was the first one?
I don't remember, but I think so.
Not materials, sorry. Transcripts.
And once again, I think they were struggling a bit to explain their thinking when the people were saying we are a bit confused. They didn't do a good job this time either to really explain what they meant with the new draft, I think.
Let me search by inclusive because that was one way I was able to find stuff yesterday quick. Nah, it must be the other one because this one's telling me it doesn't have anything for inclusive. But yeah, it's so just their arguments are so poorly written. And like I said, I understand the you know, like trying to argue that you want people to have choice, but if you're trying to actually save students money, I don't understand why they're taking that option out of the way. It just doesn't make any sense for me.
Yeah.
So, okay, so she's saying, you know, and this is most of it. So this person says they've been teaching micro for 20 years. It's preparing for today. I struggled to truly convey my advocacy for inclusive access or similar programs. You know, and she offered a few different students and kind of what they said. And then I want to find one of the opposition ones though, because they're always the first quite a few of the people who spoke like as a like an extra in terms of speakers. They were, most of them are bullish on saying that, you know, the opt-out programs and inclusive access programs are good. This one's another bullish one towards inclusive access. This is another bullish one for inclusive access. I'm telling you, there's some people who are against us. This is another one that's bullish for inclusive access. This is for the other This is for a different thing that they're talking about. It's not. Oh, and once again, here's from UCF, because UCF is the only school out here which is ironically close to where Spark is. That apparently these are the only people who are against the opt-out program. She said, or he said. It's Joshua Ashby. I'm commenting in support of proposal to eliminate auto billing of textbooks without a student's authorization, which, mind you, once again, that's not actually how this works. They keep wording it that way. It's not without the student's authorization. They have the ability to opt out. You can choose at any point to opt out, but they like to word it this way. He's a fourth-year undergrad. He's studying to receive his bachelor's. He's president of Wiki Nights, student-based organization dedicated to advocating for adoption of open educational resources, which if you guys know what OER is, this is what the other side's arguing. It's basically saying that you're going to take all the educational material out there, you're going to put it on an online database for free, and that's just going to work. There's going to be no issues. There's no, like, they don't talk about how you're going to pay for these servers, how you're going to update all this information. They don't talk about, like, there's professors out there who write textbooks because it's something that they've put their life and dedication into. And when they put it into a monetary form, it's, you know, to, like, if you're working and you're a teacher and you're working on like a niche subject, you obviously have to get paid for your investment in your work. They don't talk about how that's going to be done. So OER apparently is just going to be this perfect database that somehow no one has to pay for, but it will have everything, all the information updated as best as possible and be freely accessible from everyone. And everybody's just going to freely give their work towards it. That's what they're arguing is what OER would be. Which I'm not saying there's certain things you can't have like that, but to just argue that the entire system should be built that way, it doesn't make any sense to me. What are you saying?
I was saying I was thinking exactly the same, and there was another guy talking about his website. It was called Flat World or something like that, and it looked like a decent website. He was for the opt-in side, and I was thinking, like, surely they don't have all the courses and the books for everyone accessible there, because they weren't so big as the other ones. And I understand that they also want a piece of the cake, you know, but it's a bit like you say, it's a bit unrealistic, the whole thing, right?
Yeah. And I mean, even look at what he brings up. I mean, so he's like, there's a bunch of students who are in similar situations as him. Automatic textbook programs do not allow students to have agency or knowledge that textbooks and other materials may be able to be found at more affordable rates. Also not true. You can look at all these things, and that's what the legislation now is arguing. If it's a term of transparency and they need to list out what the cost of these materials are, everyone's for that. Everybody on the opt-out side, opt-in side, no one's in disagreement that you shouldn't have transparency over what you're purchasing and be able to compare those rates. And what they're saying now in the wording is that you would have to offer these at a discounted price, which most schools are doing anyways. So no one's in disagreement that that's how it should be, even though this side keeps arguing that that's not what's going on. And then he says, I've not met one who's not in favor or who is in favor of being billed automatically. He's like, at UCF, I'm thankful that we're the only campus to have an opt-in model. Then he goes to say, though, and this is once again my argument for even if it is opt-in, approximately 60 to 70% of UCF students typically opt in. So even in a worst case scenario, even if this fails, you still could get 60 to 70%, and I just used 30% for my numbers. So if it was 60 to 70%, you would watch free cash flow at least double. And then and that's just on a regular basis. And then if it 3 times through the different schools that they get into, I mean, you could see like a crazy amount of benefit from that. Your camera went off, Johnny. I don't know if you're doing something, just a FYI.
Yeah, I will try to fix it.
No, you're good.
Can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And that says, personally, I can usually find textbooks cheaper online, so I don't opt in. He just wants to emphasize choice because it's incredibly important to me that students are not billed without their explicit consent, which is not, once again, how the programs work. You're not billed without your consent. You're sent every time something that tells you that you can opt out. And he says, with all things going on at the beginning of the semester, I know I'd forget to opt out and get charged twice. How do you get charged twice? And how do you forget to opt out when you go to sign? They have to hand you something saying the option is to opt out if you don't want to do this. So, like I said, every time I see anything written from the other side, and you know, he's running Wiki Nights, which I actually looked up on Reddit. It's a weird Reddit page with like 2 people. So
okay.
He's running an organization with like 2 or 3 people. And then, you know, he's arguing that this is going to be making profits for textbook industry, and that's not what higher education is for. He believes the UCF can implement an opt-in program. Every other college should be able to too. But once again, he fails to understand the basic economics of the reason why the opt-out model has been working and allowing people to get the books and stuff at a discount is because you're able to pre-plan about how many students will need the supplies. So, for instance, if I'm going to buy, let's say, 100 textbooks for a class, I don't have to purchase like 5 textbooks, then 3 textbooks, then 10 textbooks as people opt into a program. I can just say right off the rip, I know we're going to need about 95, so I just order 95, get them all shipped at once, everything gets there. And the other thing is that it's there on day one. So when you go to your class, whether it's a digital thing, which everyone always argues too, that this stuff's only done digitally. It's not. You can get paper textbooks if that's the way you want to learn too. First Day Complete, if you go on their webpage, has it well described, and I've also pulled up their terms that they've had with schools. If you want to sell your paper books back, they still allow that as an option, because you'll watch a lot of people on the opt-in side say that you can't sell your textbook back, which isn't true. And there's a bunch of these things. This one's another bullish one towards saying that we should have inclusive access. I don't know. So I don't want to bore people just by reading through these things, because there's a bunch of these. But I don't know if I said hey to Scott. Scott said let's go, Scott. What's up, man? How you doing today?
Hey Scott, nice to see you here.
But yeah, anyways, so I don't need to keep going on this tangent of BNED. You guys obviously know that we're bullish on it. Do your own research. Still, we're not saying, but we like the stock. We're pro it. And I really think it's mispriced. I really think there's so many things that even all these worst case scenarios, people just aren't trudging in right now. And right now, while the stock price is at 80 cents, I mean, it's priced for bankruptcy, and I just think it's insane. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we're wrong, but I don't think so. I still think we're good.
Even if we turn out to be wrong, I think like the conversation we are having right now, it's not a poor quality conversation. We have done the readings and everything here, so I feel like we are updated. And of course, like you started out with, who knows what the politicians are going to do? But we have brought up in the past as well on other streams that there's even a case here for, even like you say, in a worst case scenario for opt-in, there's a case there that it's still undervalued, and that it can manage the debt and deleverage eventually. But I'm sure if they conclude that it's going to be an opt-in, you will see even the price drop a little bit more,
Right.
But we just have to see for what we can say, it can go up way before that the conclusion comes in, what is it, November, if they don't figure it out before.
Yeah, but that's the thing too, is we'll know by March if they're still in disagreement.
Yeah. Did you see one of the ladies asked for one more meeting after March?
I did not. Someone did. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it was in the end of one of the documents, but I didn't figure out if it was specific for the funding for the books, or if it was for some other topic.
Yeah, because
but she was saying like we are experiencing a bit of a disagreement here, so I think it would be valuable to have like an extra session. But the guy wasn't so interested, that main guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I agree. In March we will know a little bit more.
Yeah. No, there's a lot still coming down the pipe. So but if you guys haven't seen too, on Seeking Alpha, there's the great article by Courage. I mean, we've been commenting the whole time as we're all trying to figure this out, and I think most of us have kind of come to the same conclusion. It just looks like everybody for the opt-in side just doesn't really have much of an argument. I don't think it's going to reach consensus. And even if, like I said, and if I am wrong, which is okay, that's partly why I went so heavily into this position. Is my largest position, just to make that clear to everybody. If it does turn into the opt-in model, I think they'll survive fine. I still think there's so much free cash flow that this generates. This model is super beneficial. Students get better pricing of books, and historically too, you'll see that the opt-in proponents, they all argue that textbooks have gotten more expensive, but statistically, cost of textbooks is down like 40% since 2017 when the opt-out programs were put in place. So what they're saying is just factually incorrect.
Yeah. And they keep bringing up these bad examples of it's a bit lazy also, these students that comes in and talk about how they didn't opt out because they didn't notice the emails and stuff like that. It's you can blame yourself as well, I understand that there are like we have talked about 100 times now. I think the main issue is actually the transparency and the like the clarity of what you are getting and the discount and everything. But I think in the last round of the transcript, they were bringing up a good example of how a school was notifying via email 3 times, I think, that okay, you can opt out now, like 3 times before the semester started.
Yeah.
So there are there are examples of how to do it well as well, you know. But mainly you have heard about all these poor examples, but I think they are in the vast minority here, you know.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's why I continue to stay bullish on it. You know, I get it that the way they've rewritten it right now is tending to push or look more like the opt-in model, which, like I said, I've already priced that in. I'm still fine with that. You know, like I said, I've always tend to look for at least a 50% return on any investment I ever make. I don't invest in things if I don't think I'm going to get a 50% return at least. You know, and I shoot for 100. You know, that's really the goal is to make doubles. But in this case, I think
Jane, if you can pull up the chart again, because like you said that you have priced it in. If we look at the chart, you can see the drop when the news came out initially.
Yeah, so this is the thing too. For anybody who hasn't been following it as closely as we have, this workup from right where we're at now, which is why I said we're at like all-time lows. We went from 80 cents, and this is when the earnings report came out, which next earnings is in March. So when this earnings report came out and everyone realized how much free cash flow this operation made, it went from 80 cents to like 225. And then a news story came out talking about the possible change to opt-in, and that's literally what drove the stock down into the ground. There's been nothing else that's come out. So this is all just on the fact that people don't think the business will survive. But that's why I've presented all these points, because I think if you do the math, I think if you just put some, I'm not saying it's, you know, not me putting a little bit of logic into this, but I think if you look at it from that perspective, I don't think this company's dead. And typically, I know I'm looking at companies that look ugly. They typically do. And also the other thing too is when you look at this, a lot of people probably see this enterprise value. They probably see that my leverage calculator is really leveraged. But if you actually go to the SEC webpage, it's really important to note that that's not actual debt. Their actual amount of debt is much, much lower. We look at long-term debt, it's at 233. So a big chunk of this is operating leases, it's accounts payable. So even though it says there's 600 in debt, that's not true. Really, there's the 233. And that's the thing is, and this number, it's kind of bounced around just because the way the program works. You make all your money on textbooks usually in the spring and fall semester, not in the summer, not in the winter. Now, I know some campuses do all four, and I'm sure they make some money, but it's due to that. That's why you kind of watch this number bounce around. And if you actually look at what the debt is, it's just the credit facility. They do have a small term loan, but that's not even due till next year. This credit facility is the one that's concerning this 204. So really, there's 204 that could be possibly due, and this is why we're talking about they'd have to restructure in order to be able to get this pushed back. Now, they've already pushed it back once. They just pushed it back. So the chance of them in the future pushing it back again, I don't think it's that low. So it was already in a high interest rate environment that they pushed it back by 6 months. So to think that they couldn't push it back further, it's most likely what's going to happen. And I don't know if anyone looks into bankruptcy type much, but no one wants to go into bankruptcy if they can avoid it. So if an ABL can offer to push this back, especially with the chance that free cash flow is coming in a proven model, I would think it'd be kind of insane for them to push for bankruptcy, because you're not going to get your money back. You're going to end up squandering it. So, like I said, these are all reasons in my mind as I look at this where I'm like, this isn't as ugly as it looks. Not even close.
Yeah. And this is where I guess you can also have in the back of your head the conversation, like you just said, that this is a buyout candidate as well, if it stays cheap, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I know everyone uses this word and I kind of hate it because every merger involves synergy, but if you were a textbook publisher and you wanted to be able to make sure that your textbooks are the ones that are cheapest and that those are the ones that are getting into, certain colleges, then it would be awesome to own BNED, because then you'd own all these college stores and you could make sure your textbooks were the ones of choice going into these schools. So you're not going to make more money on making your textbooks more expensive, but if your textbooks are the one that are being purchased more often, it's just on sheer volume you make more money. So it would be very beneficial for any of these textbook companies to acquire BNED. Now, I usually don't push for acquisitions. I know I see that a lot, but it's kind of rare that an acquisition is my thesis. I will never go into something heavily just on the thought that it could get acquired, because there's just so much that can go on. There's litigation. It can take a while. And I mean, we just saw with JetBlue and Spirit, like mergers that look like they're going to happen can fail. So I don't want to put too much faith in just that idea. But in this case, I do think that actually option exists. I'm not saying that I can't see. And the other thing too is Panagos, the guy that they brought onto the board, that guy literally restructures debt. That's the goal. So he got brought onto the board. He's done it for a ton of high name companies. He did it for IHOP, and there's literally like 10 companies he's done it for. Who did he just do it for? Didn't he just do it? Oh, he did it for was it Cengage, which is another company similar to Barnes and Nobles. So he literally just did this for a very similar company. Now he's coming in here and to do it for BNED. So he seems like the right guy to have on the board. It looks like that's what the company's focused on, is making sure they get this debt restructured. So I think management's also like where they're supposed to be. They're doing what they need to do to make sure that they're going to get through this bump. And then I think profitability in the futures, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. And I think you said it earlier, but the point about the growth opportunity, no matter what happens, there's a big, they can scale up a lot here with universities that they are not currently in. And I think that's a very important point here to keep in the back of your mind as well.
Yeah, and to anybody watching too, if you have any questions, like I like to hear other people's, maybe try to pick apart my thesis or whatnot. So if you're able to bring anything up or have any questions about like why you think maybe we're wrong, I'd love to hear it, because I always appreciate any kind of, not necessarily like critique of the way I'm looking at things. Obviously, it's very easy to become biased when you are trying to look at why something will succeed. So obviously I have that bias, and I'm not going to not respect that bias exists. But at the same time, this is this one to me, I feel like I'm right. I was doing the math yesterday. Even if I'm wrong, let's say I'm totally wrong on this, I'll be fine. So
yeah.
I keep getting my cost basis down. As long as the market's going to offer me this company under 80 cents, I'm buying shares like every day. Every day I continue to drive my cost basis down.
There's a risk in most of the companies that we are dealing in with this strategy. And another guy, Kingdom Capital, has also written an article about it, BNED. It's on Seeking Alpha if you guys want to check it out. But he has a hold rating, and I think, if I remember correctly, something like he said that he did the math and he can't really get there for BNED. It's a bit older than the Courage article. But that's also a guy we follow, right, Dane? And he is not as bullish as we are currently. So, of course, we need to have some balance as well. But yeah, Dane said it's his biggest position. This is my second biggest one. And I have also recently bought more, and I even erased the stop loss because it was getting close, and I don't want to be stop loss down here.
Yeah, I think down here, this is where you add if you believe in the turnaround. If the turnaround's going to happen, it's going to happen fast. I mean, like we said, when you pull up this chart, when something starts to pop out. I mean, maybe if you're more of a technical guy, you might want to wait until you can see it break through maybe this like 90 cent range, somewhere in here. But for instance, guys, you see this spike here where the one day it went up to $1.30. That was on the possibility that we were reading some initial news that day that made it sound like the opt-in model wouldn't necessarily be approved. So you can see in one day the stock jumped from like 80 cents to $1.30 just on that news alone. So the market
With
is
8 times
watching and
volume.
waiting to price this in properly. There's just a ton of people who don't want to take the risk because they don't want to be the first ones in. But if you want the returns, you got to be the first one in. You got to understand and don't get me wrong. I mean, we're looking at we are going to go into other companies today. I don't want this to turn into just the GameStop type idea where it's just every stream's just about one company. Don't get me wrong. GameStop made a lot of sense and it was definitely something to cover when it was big. But with BNED, I don't want that to be all we talk about today. But it is, I really think, a really compelling play right now. And I just think the market's kind of missing the whole story because no one's doing just the delve in here to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And if you pull up the chart again, Dane, we have talked about in some of the previous streams that we tend to look for these double bottoms. And I think you can see it there on the chart that this is a bit what we are looking for,
Right.
When it retests the bottom, and currently it's still there. And of course, we would prefer it to go a little bit up now with time, but I don't think we will see those kinds of moves now with the new transcripts, because in my opinion, they didn't add too much from what we knew from before.
Yeah, the next, like I said, the next big catalyst for this will obviously be earnings will be a big one. And then the other thing is before the next session, the Department of Education will put out their next rewrite of how the law is going to be stated. So when they put that out, which it's supposed to be March 4th, the next session will be. So they're going to have to put that out beforehand. So we probably have less than a week before they put out the next rewrite of how the law is going to be written. And there's been a lot of ways that people wanted to rewrite it. Like, for instance, where am I? If I pull this... Here, we can just go under here. Because if I go back to these negotiated rules, I just want to show you, like, from our side, someone's rewritten the law. Just put out an example. And... let me just... I know it's the one with a bunch of them. It's this one here. So this was proposed by people who want to keep the opt-out model. And I think it's well written, essentially. So basically, of course, it's not this one.
No, but they were focusing the language more towards transparency and clarity, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I thought it was that one, but it must be this. Oh, it's this one, this cash management proposal. Yeah, and here, this is how they rewrite the law, which I think you brought this up on your last one. But anyways, all it's basically saying is that, in order to keep opt-out, that they'd have an arrangement with a supplier of books to make sure that it's available. The supplies have to be at or below competitive market rates, certified to the department on an annual basis that the institution's offering them at below these rates, provides a way for students to obtain these books and supplies by the first day of a payment period, but no later than the 7th day, specifies the included cost of book and supplies as a separate institutional charge on the student's account, so that you're easily able to see what you're buying and how much these things do cost, and then has a policy and procedure must clearly and conspicuously disclose the institution's website and catalog, under which a student may opt out of the institutional charge. And this includes a direct written notice to the student at the time of enrollment, and again at least 2 weeks before the start of the term, that they may opt out of the institutional charge, and with clear instructions on how to opt out, and the explanation that once you do opt out, then you just have to find your own alternative sources for the books and supplies. They have to have it on web-based. It has to be a prominent web-based opt-out capability, so it has to be very obvious how to opt out online. And then within 14 days of the student opting out of the institutional charge, provisions of the student's funds that would otherwise have been applied to the institutional charge would have to be, what is this, returned? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, and
I'm not quite sure what that last paragraph means. I think that's
No.
saying that you just have to make sure that those funds are returned by a certain point.
yeah, probably.
But I think that's a reasonable way that just to see from our side how the law could be rewritten. If that's rewritten and this stays as an opt out, I mean, you guys can see the simple math. BNED would go crazy. You know, if I was to do like a bullish calculation for math, like let's say opt out stays in place and we get the 80 students on average that created the 61 million flow in free cash flow, but we're able to triple this number. That means the simple free cash flow goes to 180 or so million most likely. And at 180 million, we're worried about 200 million in debt. If you made 180 million in free cash flow, like debt would never be a concern. This company would probably flip themselves around where they're offering money back to shareholders in a really advantageous way. So, you know, in a best case scenario, you can see how obviously this would take off. Now, I don't want to really bring up that too much because it's rare that everything's going to go perfectly in our favor. But you can see if it did, what this would look like for BNED. You want to start going through, and so we don't
Yeah.
kill everybody with BNED here? But we like the stock if you didn't notice. So yeah, just so you know, guys. So this is the daily movers. I usually, when I'm going through, I'm just trying to find if anything's usually close to lows, and I also look at upside because obviously if I'm looking for 50% returns, I want to make sure that stuff can get returned. I look at a mix of these metrics, you know, like for instance, I see, you know, book value here, it's trading, and I have these all reversed, similar to RK, how he had them. So this is telling you that it's 79 times cheaper, or 7.9 times cheaper than book value. So it's like super cheap compared to book value, but this one's like burning cash terribly. So like when you look at these metrics, that's kind of how you can judge this real quick, and you'll see that you know, a company, even though it's worth look at what the stock has done. It's went from 4,000, now it's down to 89% from a low. So you know, this is why cash flow and all that matters so much, because in the long run, if you're not generating cash, you can only do so many things to keep your stock price elevated before you're going to start to run yourself into the ground. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at these things as we go through quick. I don't look at a lot of REITs. This is investment banking, which I probably don't see much on there anyways. Typically those are, you're looking more at the actual what's on their books when you're looking at with financials to see what their actual, you know, net profit is from these, or net interest is really what it is. What's copper been doing? You been looking at copper at all?
No, I haven't.
So you guys will see, you know, when I look at copper there and I hop back over here, I like to go just to the actual chart just to see where copper's been trading. You can see from the charts, this is a 5 year. I just want to make sure I got the same thing up here. So they somewhat similarly follow each other. So as the price of copper goes up. So if we look at copper on a long-term basis, it's still pretty bullish. So even though, so that makes me think that I probably won't look too much into that one right now, just because it is trading cheap just in terms of on a 52-week high, but I don't know if there's much there because copper's not historically at lows. So if you're buying it right now, even at a low 52-week, you're probably in the wrong part of a cycle. So that's a quick way of judging that. You know, it might not be right. Sometimes I check the news on these too, just to see, because sometimes I'll learn something about it that I'm like, oh, you know, I didn't realize that. And the more you look into some of the different commodities, the better idea you'll have of cycles and what affects them. So it allows you to kind of better time when you're going to get in and out of a commodity type play. I find it rare that people buy commodity companies. I guess like now, if you wanted to argue like lithium's at a low. I was listening to an interesting podcast. And they were talking about right now everybody's like kind of negative on EVs and talking about the pullback. But if you actually look at like what Tesla's numbers are predicted, like he's gonna kill it. He's just saying it's not as bullish as it like initially was, but the numbers are still like there's a lot of growth there. So I actually find it interesting that Tesla's pulled back so much right now. I bet you'll see a spike in Tesla again here coming up. Which my whole point of that was being that lithium right now is considered, lithium's kind of dropped back off too because people are thinking there's not going to be this demand. But I think that's kind of insane to think that we're going to just kind of turn our backs on EVs here just after like the first pullback. It's gonna go up and down. I looked at Expensify pretty recently. I don't think there's anything. I just want to make sure there's no news on Expensify. There was some insider buying, so obviously insider buying's huge. Great thing to look at. So just recently they had a huge jump. So their earnings killed it. Oh, so maybe I missed these earnings. Maybe it'll be worth pulling them up then. This is why it's good to check the news sometimes because you can miss things. See, look at that. They kill earnings right after all this insider buying. You know.
We saw some of the funds had them right last Saturday.
Yeah, so maybe people are better following the business. And mind you, that means that these metrics will be behind, just so you guys know. Here's Expensify. So like, yeah, that'll mean these metrics are behind because if it's just a recent filing, this isn't updated just yet. So that's why you have to look at these things. That's why you have to understand the spreadsheets. I know people have asked us if they can get the spreadsheets, but like if you don't understand what's going on here, like these can be extremely deceiving. So it's really knowing how this is built from the ground up. If you guys ever have questions on the spreadsheets too, please ask. Happily to go over these things. Happily to go over how there's errors and they can ruin your day.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you guys see any tickers on here too that you want me to look into, just call them out. I have an ad hoc. So in my fundamental sheet here. So this first page here, whatever I type in here, I can just change on the fly. It doesn't have to be pulled in from here. I saw CTRM was up a little bit, but they've never really broken out too much. Even on the 1 year chart, I mean, there's been some pumps up. Wow, I didn't realize this got down to 20 some cents. This was right when the Suez Canal started getting blocked. This is a shipping company, if you guys don't know it, and it's not the prettiest company. They've bought a lot of ships, and he's actually been selling. The owner of the business has been selling those ships for quite a big loss. So it obviously wasn't as great of a marketing scheme as initially thought. But just on the basic transportation idea, because right now he's using the ships for transportation. Anytime Suez Canal gets blocked and shipping costs go up, a lot of the shipping companies benefit from that because it's just more costly. You know, you have to pay more. Have you pulled up SandW in a little bit?
We did it on a stream not too long ago.
Yeah, I know we've pulled it up. I just looks like it's kind of rebounded a little bit already.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I said it was poor fundamentals currently. Over here, guys, I put in little short notes. So anytime you see anything with like notes in it, that's how you know it's a company that I've already looked at. And my database now is just over 1,000 companies that I've looked into. But you know, it doesn't take as long as you'd think to check out some of these companies because some of them pretty quick you could tell aren't what I'm looking for. Because like I said, I'm kind of looking for home runs. People can argue that's stupid, but I find when I go heavily into very few positions, I tend to do a lot better. I don't feel like I need to diversify. I think the only time I would diversify is if there was like a huge market crash and, you know, just trying to see what would come back. Similar to how RK was doing actually after COVID.
Yeah. he even said that that was not normal for him, right?
Right. I don't think it's normal for many people to have like 100
Yeah.
companies,
How many had,
especially
like,
as an individual
150?
investor.
Yeah.
Johnny, do you have a goal for how many companies you like to hold, or not necessarily?
I have thought about it a lot, and I've experimented a little bit. I don't have a number.
No.
I have landed on just like you said a bit. I don't want to. You can call this. We are talking about risk and all that stuff, and that things are risky, and maybe that most people aren't looking at the same things that we do. But keep in mind also, everyone who is watching now, and the sheets with that calculator, we take into consideration the leverage, right? So it's a bit more conservative, the numbers.
Yeah.
So not that is a foolproof thing or anything like that, but the numbers will probably not match other numbers you will see other places.
Right. And
But
I was just gonna say we got that from RK. So I mean, in RK
Yeah.
when he talked about it too, it's just like a general guideline to kind of like let you know like a company's really levered. So we discount everything based on as if I was going to have to issue shares to raise capital, and then you have to issue
Yeah.
those shares at a discount. So when you're doing that, it can drive your valuation down, but that's great because we're trying to be conservative. We're trying to build in a margin of safety. We are value investors, even though we take on probably what most people consider too much risk. But if you want outsized returns, I don't understand how people are so against I don't think volatility is a good measure of risk.
No, and yeah. So I don't have a number, but the companies that I buy into has to have a lot of things going for them in the way I look at it, and then if I add, it's also a matter of how much I can afford right now in my personal situation, and that's going to change up and down as we go.
Yeah.
Right now I only have 2 in my portfolio, but I had 4 not too long ago. But because of the BNED situation, I decided to put more money into there. So I sold out of a couple. So I'm thinking like 4 or 5 is a good number right now, and I wish I could buy into a few other tickers right now, but right now I can't afford it. So that's how it is.
Yeah, it comes and goes. You have to have the money that you can comfortably invest in, and just a disclaimer, if you guys haven't seen some of the, because we have quite a few streams that we've done now.
Yeah.
I just like to remind people too. I have other portfolios, so this isn't like my entire. I don't put everything, even though this is like let's say BNED's like a massive position for me. It is in this portfolio, but I have other portfolios that I might own BNED in one of my other portfolios, but it's not like the position it is in this one where I'm trying to really swing for outsized returns on just a few companies. And for instance, like let's say I found a few different really, I definitely want to look at this. Now that I'm looking at this chart, there's the huge sell-off here. But, it's not to say that if I have let's say 5 or 6 great ideas, I'm not going to split it up amongst those ideas. But I'm not afraid if I only have 1 or 2 ideas right now that I think are really bullish. And BNED to me has a catalyst. There's earnings coming up. If they restructure their debt, if they get bought out, those are things that can happen and happen relatively soon. And if that does happen, you could find a double or a triple in a matter of, a few months. And the whole point is trying to find a system that you're able to reliably do this. And, this is why I said out of the last 4 or 5 companies I've picked that I had really high conviction on, I've only missed 1 time, and normally we set stop losses at 10 or 15%, depends on what the play is. And that's why Johnny was saying that he removed his for BNED, because we're both kind of understanding what the story is, so we're not so much worried about the stop loss on this one. But, typically I lose 10 to 50% on a position, but most positions I shoot for 50 to 100%. So if I'm on the last 4, I've gotten, usually it averages out to 70, 80%, just depends on how quick it goes up and how fast I'm trunching in and out, how long I think, something's going to, and it depends on the story for the company. Is the story permanently turned around and now they're going to continue to grow? because I might hold them a little bit longer then. Or if it's just more of a play where there's an event that occurs and something was really mispriced, and that price isn't going to probably go up much more than that point. It's now fairly valued, or what I would consider. I might tend to get out of something a little bit earlier, but that way, my portfolio is like it's ridiculous. My 3-year return has been 50%, so I'm actually hitting it almost perfectly, but for this portfolio. But BNED's just the next one I found in my list of them that I'm real bullish on. And you can look it up. I've done Adherent, I've done Advanced Emissions, I've done RIG. We were in Alto. Johnny's still in Alto. I have a really small position left in Alto, and I missed that last pullback. I should have added there, but it's whatever. I do think Alto's gonna really. I'm hoping they really turn around for earnings. I could see them doing it this quarter. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But my point being
I think you bring up a good point when you talk about the near-term catalysts. That's a big part of our strategy as well. And that's why we track so many things and pay closely attention to big drops. Just like what happened both in Alto and BNED, actually. And then, okay, if you have a near-term, because of the... our timeline for many people is a bit shorter than what you consider real value investing, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I would definitely consider us deep value investors. We're not really your typical value investor. I do have a portfolio, which is more of a real value investing portfolio where I try and look for great companies. But I find that while you're a smaller investor, you're able to look at these. Like when you look at BNED, like when we pull up BNED now, I mean, its market cap's 43 million. How many people do you actually think are doing deep dives into a company with 43 million as their market cap? Like probably us. I don't know. There's a few other investors. I mean, obviously there's other ones because there is some big names looking at BNED as well. It's not just us, obviously. But it's not hedge funds. It's not these big funds looking at this. Would I be excited if Burry or one of those guys bought in? Yes, obviously that would be like the best confirmation in the world. But there's a lot going on. It's tough to see, and this is one of those things too that I think most people don't want to take the risk on. They don't like the way the balance sheet looks. But I think it's really lazy for an investor to just look at the balance sheet and then not take it any bit past that. Like you look at the balance sheet, you're like, oh, this looks ugly. Okay, but why? Why does it look ugly? What can it do? Is there anything that we can change around on this? Even Burry said that, most of the companies he looked at, they look like they're dying. And, he tries to find ways to turn things around or sees what the company's doing to turn things around before he bases any investment. And, I've taken a lot from Burry. But thank you for the subscription. It was Chappie's what he said his name was. Thanks, Chappie.
Was it alert?
Yeah, I just got an alert.
Oh, I didn't see it. Thank you.
But yeah, so
no,
I think there's a lot that you can learn from the way those guys do things. Even Burry, I know this sounds ridiculous, but he doesn't want his like assets under management to get too high because he likes to do this, like I call it flipping stones, where you're looking at like companies that other people don't, because you can get great returns. You would imagine if you get to his point and you're investing more in Buffett style, like it's got to get boring at some point, because if you're just investing in like these like real slow moving companies, don't get me wrong, it's got to be awesome to know that you're getting 5% dividends when you own $100 billion, because 5% dividends at 100 billions, $5 billion a year. Don't get me wrong, that's got to be a great feeling, but we're not there yet, so I'm not investing in those kind of companies. I'm looking at stuff where I can really compound returns. And even if you look at Buffett would argue this is what he would be doing if he had a small amount of money.
Yeah.
So
he even talked about it in his documentary on Netflix or wherever it is.
Yeah, I'm just I'm finding some stuff in these daily losers. This is weekly, guys. So now I'm going to my weekly one. So this is usually how I do this. I do this a few times a week. Just kind of look at. I don't tend to look at weekly movers until the weekend, and I try and do everything after the market's closed. I'm not like, we're not traders, if you guys haven't realized, but Don't get me wrong, I don't not take trading into consideration. You know, I pay attention to what the noise is as I'm trying to build into a position. I'm watching. You can see what the traders are doing. You can watch when people are getting scalped, because you'll watch the stock price go up and down all day, and you can see that people are just getting money thieved from them left and right, because they're. But that's not what we're doing in our position. I do use technicals. You guys see us use the charts, but it's kind of after the fundamental analysis that we do. And really, that's taken from RK. I think it was when I first watched RK and I saw his strategy. It just made very clear sense to me, like what he was doing and why, taking into account, like, I think people get lost in their strategies. And why wouldn't you look at, like, what are the growth investors thinking? What is a narrative-based investor thinking? What are the traders thinking? What is technical analysis traders thinking? What are swing traders thinking? You know, what are the value guys thinking? Because if you take like 6 or 7 different ideas into one, it gives you a better idea of why a stock has a certain price. Like, when you look at something and you think it's misvalued, it's probably misvalued to you because you're not paying attention to, well, what are the growth investors thinking? What are the traders thinking? You know, because those have huge effects on stock price. And if you're only looking at something from just the valuation side, you're missing out on the way other people are looking at the markets. And that's a huge disadvantage of being only strictly value. Don't get me wrong, value is the basis of what I do, but it should only be a part of it. It's a very important part, but just one part of it.
Yeah. And this develops as we go. We have talked about that in before also, like the sheets develop and our style develops, and we talk to each other, and we like bounce ideas off each other, and we adjust here and there. So hopefully everyone who follows along will see the development and the constant moving things. But I just want to say then, like, when you talked about BNED and the 44 million market cap, you also saw, like we talked about earlier, on that Friday, when it went up to 50% in a day, and then of course it went down again that same day. But the volume then was 8 times the normal average, right?
Right.
So even when it's small, when something happens, people jump on, you know. So that's the ones you want to be in.
Well, and this is one of the things too that's important to remember. When you do look at companies that have small market caps like this, like when a stock price triples, for instance. So let's say we got back to like just over $2 again. When the market cap hits like 150 million, that opens it up to a bunch of investors who won't look at something, let's say under 100 million, you know, like that's like their lowest threshold. Well, now they might start looking into this, and that means you got more larger capital that could go into these things. So sometimes you can actually get like an exponential increase because you kind of go out of this range of really small companies and you start to open yourself up, you know, and as companies go from 100 million to 500 million, that's even more investors now who are bigger that will start to look and take maybe small positions in this because it interests them. I mean, you watch stock prices go from $1 to $10 and you wonder how that happens. Well, it's because at certain price points, that's when certain investors who are too big can get into these things. So it's just the way it works. It's just part of the markets.
Yeah.
But that's why you have a huge advantage as a small retail investor.
Yeah. Let's pull some companies up then.
Yeah, hang on. I just want to just go through the losers real quick, and then sorry guys, I know I'm talking too much today.
And by the way, if you want us to look at something, feel free to use the chat and throw some tickers our way, and if we have time, we can pull them up.
Yeah, I mean, so far I got some things that have interested me, but there's also a lot in here that isn't quite what I'm looking for. So let's just check Insider real quick. Always like to check the Insider, see if anything is going on here. There's always a lot of financials lately. Tilly's again. They're still buying Tilly's.
Yeah.
This is one I've been in and out of before.
Yeah.
It's just still flat. Malibu boats.
I did them on Tuesday.
Oh, did you? Did you like them?
Yeah. Yes, but they were not exact. I did not add them to the tracker, but it had a few things going for it.
All right. Yeah, maybe I won't do them on the stream then. I'll do them on my own, but I'll just pull them in.
Yeah. Well, we could go through anyways if we have time. And we saw GTE this
Dival's
week
at
were
34?
beating. They beat earnings. Did you see that, Dane?
Who did?
GTE.
Yes, I did, and that stock's been reacting finely.
Yeah.
No, we've Stabos is big in GTE, so he's one of the guys that we take into consideration. There's quite a few investors on Seeking Alpha that we respect that we'll look into. The GTE is just they kind of get screwed just because of where they are. I really think that's why that stock's so depressed, is just the foreign risk that most people don't want to take on, being Colombia and Ecuador. It's a gas company, or natural, or oil and gas, I should say. But a lot of people just they put such a heavy discount for being in Colombia. The discount there is for some reason insane.
Yeah. And even with the earnings beat, it currently trade 15% to 52-week low. So it's still interesting. That's one of the ones I had in the portfolio before I added more in BNED. And I kind of didn't want to sell, but that's how it is. You have to make some decisions. And, the future will see if it turned out the good or not. But I'm still interested in GT.
No, it's still on my watch list.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I wish it would have pulled back a little bit more, and maybe I would have started to take a position.
I think in May it went down 3% the day after the earnings beat, which doesn't really make so much sense, So let's see where it goes, and it tracks oil, and we talked a little bit off the stream also, Dane, that GT just seems to struggle a bit to establish itself a bit higher,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just never seems to get fairly valued, at least where I think it should be.
Yeah.
Just give it a sec, guys. It just I'm updating all my tickers, so it pulls in on like the information for each one of these, which we gotta zoom out on some of these, but it just takes a sec for it to do all of them. But maybe I can just pull up GTE here. Because so right now you guys can see that the market price is 548, which my valuation counter into this doesn't really take into capex very well, which obviously for an oil company you really got to take into consideration capex. So my valuation will look kind of high, but even if I discount it for capex, it still to me is super cheap at $5 some. This should. To me, I could see this. I got to just see what the numbers were, but I remember thinking it was worth like maybe 8 or 9 at least.
Yeah. And if you go to Seeking, Stabos has had a few comments now on that earning report, and he's updated today actually that they are still buying back shares. He has done a good job updating everyone on that, and they are buying the most as they can every time, so every week. So stuff are going on there, talking about like catalysts and stuff like that,
Yeah, I mean, I could see this being worth $10, which
yeah,
I know historically $10 is definitely some kind of resistance, if you just look at the charts there. But I don't think that's an unreasonable valuation. $10 for this, I could see $10.
Yeah.
They've never paid a
is
dividend
saying
in
that
the past, but
Sorry?
I was just saying they hadn't paid a dividend. I was just looking.
Oh yeah, no. Starbucks is saying that he expect them to buy back 10% of their stock this year.
Yeah, this is that's a great point you bring up. So another thing to really take into consideration. So because GTE, like I said, it's out of Colombia. Most of it's Colombia. There's a small portion of it that's in Ecuador. But either way, look at what management's doing here. I mean, they're buying shares back like hand over fist. So we're and he said they're still supposed to keep buying back. So this share count could get down to like, I don't know, 27 million or something like that, which improves all these metrics because all my metrics are done per share. And that way I take into buybacks because I sometimes people don't take buybacks into consideration. They don't like that. But if you're a bigger owner of a better company, I don't see how those shares aren't worth more. I think that's poor logic. And then, debt is been being slowly paid down. We've gotten almost double this. Well, not quite double, but we've been to 775. Now we're at 555. What are revenues doing right now? Revenues are close to all-time highs. Last year was a big year for them, but still not bad by any means. I mean, it's still one of their best years. So all those things going on, and the fact that they're doing buybacks, they're paying their debt down. It is a little leveraged right now, but it doesn't look very crazy for me for an oil company. So I like it. I think GT is a solid buy somewhere in here. I like I said, I would just like it a little cheaper, but I do like it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was in at cheaper levels, so if I want to jump back in the near future, I also want the pullback, but you might not get it now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta adjust this because this is going by yearly, I think. Yeah, it needs to be quarterly. Don't mind me, guys. I'm just adjusting something here. That looks better. Because I was like, EXFY has not been around that long. I was like, how do I have over 10 years of data for these guys? So I have fair value right now based on everything that EXFY has got going on at $2.14. So the $1.85 right now doesn't look. I mean, you could have argued at $1.50. That's pretty cheap.
Check who the owners here are, Dane, because if I remember correctly, there was a couple of big funds that were in them for quite some time too.
Oh, did they change the way this looks?
Yeah, I think so.
EXFY Incorporated themselves. Some of their bigger guys have been selling. Oh, wait, I want to see percent of portfolio. Well, no, I guess ownership is the way to go by. Citadel owns them. But, I mean, really it's this Barrett, David Michael, and Stephen McLaughlin, which it's almost the entire portfolio for these guys.
Okay.
They have been trimming, so they don't necessarily bode too much. But if you look at, there is some people who have been buying. What is this EXFY Incorporated? Who are these guys?
I might be a bit confused with another ticker, to be honest. I might remember this wrong. In terms of the owners.
I don't understand how is it that they own themselves? Why is my internet not working? Nothing's working. Does this work? Well, their webpage works at least. That's good. You don't use EXFY, do you?
And no, I've heard of them, but I haven't used them.
Yeah, it's a money management type idea. It's probably not. It's not like a bad idea. So if you guys just read, It's a cloud-based expense management software platform that helps businesses to simplify the way they manage money. It's used all over the place or all over the world to scan and reimburse receipts. It's just basically meant to be very user-friendly in a way to kind of keep track of all your costs and stuff, and then to be able to take advantage of different services that could save you money over time. And I think it looks like too, even as like an individual, you can use it as like your own kind of cash management to kind of like budget yourself to make sure you're not doing anything too crazy. There's some insiders, and what was the actual beat on earnings? That's, I guess, my most curious thing here. Obviously, the stock market reacted really well. We're talking 23% a day.
Yeah.
And they said it reported mixed earnings, huh? What is mixed earnings?
Yeah, I just read it, and that they missed on the on revenue estimates, but could it be like the outlook for 24?
Yeah, it did say. Does it say what their
Paid members were 719,000, a decrease of 8%. So it's a bit weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all we just have to figure out if they're going to continue to be able to increase earnings, you know, and free cash flow is still negative for them. This is just Q4, but I would imagine that their business isn't really cyclical. I imagine all year you're still kind of making money, so that doesn't.
But if you look at the bottom point there, they talk about the estimates of free cash flow for 24, so that's probably the news, right?
Yeah, I mean, if this is true, yeah, you're right. So, you know, we're talking that right now they're losing like 12 million, and if they could get that to positive 12 million, I mean, that's 100% turnaround. I'm curious to see what the transcript would say on what their plan is to actually do this.
Maybe you have to go to their website.
I was just seeing if they only have the Q3 one. Yeah, I can see if there's the actual transcript here.
I just found a PDF, which is 7 pages, so it's not the transcript.
Well, this is a this is a really basic look at it, but we can use this. Try and zoom in so everybody can see this. So for year revenues there, what is net interchange?
Net interchange, I don't know.
I haven't heard that term used. So they still lost 41 million. How much cash do they have?
Here is net. Let's check.
88. Just on mine quick. I just wanted to look at. So that's quite a bit. If the net loss is 41 million, and it did say actually. So even though they had minus 3.6, their operating cash flow was positive. Free cash flows barely positive. But I imagine they shouldn't have too much in capex.
It says the net interchange is what you get after deducting the card network fee and the platforms at cost processing fee. So
okay,
because of the online platform thing.
Okay, so that's just kind of their cost of business essentially.
Yeah.
So they have different cost-cutting measurements. These measures were implemented halfway through the fourth quarter, so we expect the full impact to be felt in future quarters. We're initiating full-year free cash flow guidance to provide a more clear picture on the cash impact.
It's a pretty drastic increase if they can manage to do that.
Yeah, right. So monthly paid members are down to 690, which is definitely lower than it's been, but it's not like a crazy pullback, you know. I'd be curious how much or how beneficial this is to different companies and stuff to actually use the product. You know, I'd like to hear someone who actually uses it.
And they show up as safe in your sheet, right? Because they have some money in mind.
Mine says levered, and that's only because of the Z-score.
Okay.
Which is probably just due to like cash flow. Is what my
So
guess
you
is.
don't have anything in net excess cash per share?
It doesn't actually issue any shares though.
Okay.
So it doesn't
Yeah,
it
so
doesn't affect it. Even though it says levered on here, guys, it doesn't mean that it's actually changed anything. Like the share counts down here would actually be changed if it was saying to issue shares, which it does not still.
No.
And the other thing too, guys, is like we only have 3 years of data here, so this is why I'm gonna look at this quick, but I'm not gonna put too much weight on this stuff because I really need to know more what's going on with the company. This isn't one you're gonna be able to like value it, you know, off of 3 years of data. Like we don't even know what this company's like necessarily at. We definitely don't know. Like you have to almost look at growth. You just kind of have to take it into consideration if you're gonna consider something like this. And you know, I try to look at companies that probably most people wouldn't. You know, just because it's not like a traditional value company doesn't mean that I'm not going to look at it, because you know I find all kinds of things that I don't think I would normally look at by doing this. So it sounds like they're just the ones who have gotten this kind of build it out, and it is generating cash. I mean, it's not anything crazy just yet, but they are generating cash.
I'm reading a little bit about what's his name? Stephen McLaughlin, or how you pronounce it. Because he's just a 10% owner, it says, according to Open Insider. And he's being called the richest, what is it being called? Best paid banker in financial technology. So that he buys pretty close to the 52-week low. It's not a massive buy, but it's two times. That is a bit meaningful, right?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, obviously he's bullish on the idea. He thinks it's going to grow. Yeah. And that's another thing we look at insider buying, because obviously if someone's spending that much and they have that large of a position, you know, they got real skin in the game, and they're planning on this working.
Yeah.
I was just trying to see how their debt is. I just wanted to understand what more their debt is from. So they have a line of credit of 15 million. So they do have some long-term debt. Is that really listed in? Is it under commitments? Remember, this is Q3. This isn't the most recent one, so there's still more stuff to go in. So they have a few different finances or ways to finance themselves. All right, I just want to see about what I would calculate here for an interesting way to get in. So I get like around like a little cheaper than it's gotten. But you know, if you take into consideration the possibility of growth, I mean, this probably is pretty cheap right here. Actually, I'm slightly interested in this. What is their ticker?
Yeah, same. It's in my tracker
EXFY.
already.
What's up?
No, I said it's in. I think we have done a stream on it before, right? It's in my track sheet. But I'm just looking at the chart as well. Not too long ago, it was trading like around 8, 9, you know.
And I'm just putting a note in here. So this is my database, guys. So when I go in here, I update the date when I last look at something, and just put in kind of some notes if I have anything. All these little shortcuts in here are just reminders. So this is just telling me it's a fintech, that it's young. There's insiders. The OD means it's on deck, which means that when I want to look at these things, like if I want to just kind of sift through here, because like I said, I have like 1,000 companies or more. I can just do my on deck ones in this list, so it kind of limits that list down. And then from here, if I put it on my watch list, I can get an even better idea of companies that are a little bit more closer to what I'm looking for in terms of like if there's either a catalyst or I think it's at a cyclical low and it's cheap. You know, that starts to go onto the watch list. Sometimes asset plays. And I'm going to make another one for just great companies, just because I'm going to use that for my other portfolio. So one of these days I'll get around to building that, which it's pretty simple. I can edit this pretty quickly. Now that I just moved away from where I was. Yeah, and I said like 230 last. I actually said 156 is what I should have bought on my own guidance.
Yeah, it hit 152.
Yeah, I would have been smart to buy there because last time I looked, I said I thought it was worth about 230. And the numbers actually come down a little bit right now, but that doesn't really mean anything. Because right now, if I calculate this where it's at now, and if we were to change, what's free cash flow right now? It's at 11. So yeah, I could see this being worth more like 350 if they start to turn around that cash flow.
Yeah, I get around the same on my sheet. But of course, this will be like they need to show that they can execute on this.
Yeah, is there any?
And I guess I don't know.
Recently? Oh, Donovan, he wrote on them.
You might get a pullback though this coming week because of the. It's a bit hard to read the chart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to worry so much about a chart on the because when I look at this chart, like it's so
few years.
Yeah, like it's not like this is like typical of every IPO. It comes out at some stupid, ridiculous price to start, and it doesn't really have earnings or anything just yet. So people try and value it, and the value is going to just plummet into the ground. If you're going off that.
Yeah.
So.
And it's been oversold for a long time now.
Is NASCAR still here? What do you think, NASCAR? You got Expensify. I know you look at IPOs a lot.
Something to trade. 16% though yesterday.
No, that's what I'm saying. And just looking here, I mean, liabilities aren't that crazy. It's 23 short term. It says 66 in total debt. And they got 88 in cash. So I mean, the balance sheet even here is still clean. Obviously, they need to start getting some kind of earnings going. But another big thing here is it looks like if they can get this SG&A margin back down, they're paying a lot out in that. If they can get this margin down. All right, you got anything else you want to add to this one?
No, I think we have covered the interesting stuff. Like I said, it's already in the tracker, so it's something I pay attention to. But I didn't look into that insider last time I pulled them up, so
gotcha.
It's a bit interesting that He bought at 176 and 177 in end of January, beginning of February.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot to take on. So that's another one too, with a young company too like that. I do watch revenues for those because it's important to see that your actual and just looking at users like that's one thing that kind of deters me right off the bat is like you said, it looked like there was a loss of users. So they can predict future guidance to be 12 million or 10 to 12 million in free cash flow, but if that number of users continues to trickle down, then that number is going to be optimistic.
Yeah. I see Nashkar is asking what was the market cap on that one. 155 million, Nashkar.
Yeah.
Of the debut price. Do you have the chart, Dane?
For which one?
EXFY.
Yeah. This is a 2-year. This is a 1 year.
What was it when it was IPO'd?
It's like $50.
Yeah.
Yeah, IPO'd like around well, actually, it only IPO'd at 27. It just shot up that day to mid 40s ish.
Yeah.
But even $27 to IPO. But that's the problem. If you hop into an IPO, is you really never know what's going to happen in the markets. That's tough. It's really tough.
Nashkar is saying it looks like an ugly IPO.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, NASCAR. It's but some of them are tough. With tech and stuff like that too. A company like that's not going to be generating revenues for a while. If you're just like an app company, like for finance, like it's not like you're getting advertisement funds or anything like that. You're not selling necessarily a product. You're getting people to use your product. So yeah, it's kind of a tough one. But I get it. I mean, how else do you grow a company like that if you don't IPO? That's gonna be a really slow grind if you're gonna do that without getting funding for it. All right, so this is Upland software. It's a cloud-based software. It's useful in various business functions. Actually, it looks like we're headed right into something similar as Expensify was. For project management, information technology, business operations, human resources, multiple channels allow it to acquire new customers, drive product and service utilization, and resolve issues. Looks like a way to analyze how your business is doing is what the software actually really does. Have you seen the software? Have you used Upland for anything?
No, I haven't, but I have the ticker in my tracker sheet as well. But do you see their acquisitions?
No, I didn't. I wanted to pull up just their business just to see here. Oh wow, so they've been around for a while and they've bought quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, did we talk about this recently?
No, I don't think we have.
Oh, I was gonna say I thought I remember. Maybe it was a different company about the acquisitions.
In my tracker sheet, it said I added them 4 of September in 22, so I've had them there for a while.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty rough year for them.
Yeah. And I think the earnings was on hold on, let me check, because they missed on earnings.
Yeah, I mean, look at their EPS is really ugly. It's like really bad.
There's a comment on the transcript or the report that it can't be a good company if your strategy is to accumulate cheap bad companies. So maybe the growth strategy they are doing is a bit poor executed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, even if you look historically, it's really been rough. It really hasn't been able to do much to succeed, and whatever's going on in this recent one has gotten really ugly. They did pay debt down a little bit.
Little bit, but share count is sneaking up year after year, you know.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of cash though that they're sitting on.
Yeah.
And it it kind of stinks that they have all this debt taken on and that they've been doing these acquisitions, because if you look, their cash flow's okay. It's just I don't, it's not great by any means. Like, it's just not, there's not much going on.
Very little in capex.
I'm sorry.
Very little in capex, so they generate almost the same in operating cash flow and free cash flow.
Yeah, well, that makes sense if it's all tech, you know what I mean?
Yeah. 14% ownership in from insiders, though.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No.
Yeah, it looks like they're all about this acquisition strategy. Looks like mostly cloud native products. It's funny too, because they're talking about their financial fitness in terms of who they would consider as an acquisition. And I so far I don't think they've had some great choices, because the way that they have this described, their business would be doing very well, and that's not been the case.
But still positive cash generation even in a bad year.
You know what they need to do is just start saying AI. This would put them through the roof. That's what they need.
Yeah.
NASCAR said he found a trend here. He's saying that 300 days after these, maybe like a year about ish, he's saying that that's when you can catch one of them post IPO, and they tend to get these massive spikes up in their movement.
Okay, interesting.
Could be too, NASCAR, that just after 300 days or so, that the stock price just finally hits in the dumps, and then someone just buys a ridiculous amount of shares for cheap, because they. If you had like $1 billion and you just funneled it all into a company real quick, it's definitely shady how some of those Chinese securities like bounce way up and then come way back down in like a day. Like, someone's skimming money off the top there.
This is valuable information for your bounce portfolio, though.
I know. NASCAR has inspired me to have my IPO bounce portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really momentum. That's what momentum traders do. They just wait for something to slowly, they look for something that look like it's been dying, and as soon as it starts to bounce, they'll pile in.
Yeah.
And just hope
We
you're not
saw
the
that
last
in
one
BNED.
out. Because even that bounce that one day in BNED, like I figured that was a huge chunk of that was momentum, guys, just because to see that kind of volume, I mean, I'm not saying people aren't looking at the company, but to go from 1 million shares trading on average to 8 million, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not seeing too much on this one. I'm pulling up Seeking just to see if anyone's written. Wow, this was really down. I forgot. This was the one that plummeted. That's what I knew there was something going on here.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Max is back. Hi, Max. He's in a car.
Max, drive safe, man.
I hope you're not driving and watching us. That would not be a good fit, I think.
Nothing like a little laughing stock on the road.
Nice to see you again, Max. By the way, Max, I asked the developers of Y-Sheets if they could add that German company, and they said they will, but it might take some time. So I'm waiting on them. Maybe we can pull it up next time or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to look at here just now because so this is what we were kind of talking about before, guys. So with like Upland, like they missed by 56 cents, which also misses by 8 cents, or their EPS was negative 56 cents, I should say. And they did have a revenue beat, but I don't really care about revenues in a company like this. Like I'm looking for more than revenue when they've been around this long and they're not being able to produce. I mean, you can just watch book value is just creeping back down. So it looks like since they started doing all these acquisitions, that hasn't really done anything for the company. If anything, you could argue it's made them a lot worse off. If their current strategy to improve things is literally only to acquire things, I would argue what you should do is sell those back off and take whatever loss it was and get back to focusing on your business. Because if you look back here, I mean, book value was slowly creeping up. They have a ton of goodwill they have to write off now too. So obviously that this strategy has not worked for them. I mean, yes, cash flow is slowly increasing, but it hasn't turned into earnings. You know, and earnings have gotten uglier and uglier now.
Yeah.
You know, the problem with this is they're going to have to issue shares or take on more debt soon. I mean, they do have the cash. That's the one thing they have going is cash. I don't know. Maybe this could bounce if I don't know how many times I can say maybe before I speak. This can bounce before like if they got a good acquisition, like if they really found a good company that fit for them, that's probably the only thing that they could do right now. I would be for selling things off and sticking to the core business.
Oh no, then Max is saying that he is the one who's driving. I think that's I hope you have a self-driving car then, Max.
Yeah, he's probably driving backwards in a Tesla down the road.
Yeah, no problem asking. I hope they will add it so we can pull it up.
Well, I don't need to zoom in 1,000 times. We're gonna have this way too zoomed in. Sorry guys, I go back and forth between my laptop in here and it's always a pain in the ass. I'm always going from zoomed in to zoomed out because I want you guys on the stream to be able to see what's going on here. I'm just pulling up Sleep Number. Have you looked at them in a while?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you know what? I did want to just update that I had looked at Upland on my database here. Which wow, I had this way higher. I'm guessing around somewhere around there, and I'm just gonna put a pretty steep discount because I really don't think there's much going on here. I'll say like around like a $1.50. This would become a little more interesting, but I'm not gonna put it on deck or anything just yet. I don't even know. You know, they need to sell like an ACK or acquire something better. You know. All right, so Sleep Number. This is quite the book value. You see this?
I need to pull them up here.
They have a really high debt load. They're debt loaded. They have more liabilities than they do assets right now, which is scary.
Yeah, talking about when stuff get a bit risky, right?
Yeah, but the stock price obviously doesn't care. So what's going on with this that makes this worth $14.70? What is the news here? Up 33%. 35 after hours.
That's a big beat, though.
Beats by 30 cents, but the problem is still negative, though.
Yeah, I have to look at the stream, so I looked at the revenue beat. I have them now.
And don't get me wrong, my in-laws have a Sleep Number bed and they love it, so it's not like the quality's not there.
I remember them now. We talked about them, right?
Yeah, we probably I definitely went over these guys, probably on the stream
Yeah.
before too. So under this guy on Seeking Alpha, he has 3 different valuations. So what is the revenues right now? Oh, okay. So this is a relatively reasonable revenue. So he said if they could get some growth going, he thinks the share price could be really high.
If you look at their cash generation since COVID, it's slowly dropping a little bit, but also before, if they can get back to those numbers, it's not impossible. But they took on a lot of debt, though.
Yeah, he's just saying that that's the issue, is the weighted average cost of capital increases to 10%. So he's just saying the reason why he's paying attention so much to revenue is the revenue is what leads to the change in his valuation. So it only has to be a little bit more in revenues for them to actually really improve the business. So that's probably why if they have a beat, it can drastically you know, this guy immediately says this is so distressed it's not worth anything. And it looks like this Hong Chu guy is saying that, you know, he's thinking of it more like a cigar butt. So he thinks, and honestly, if you just look at the chart, he's not necessarily wrong. Oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong tab here. You know, it does when it touches like the $9 range, it seems to spike off that. Now I don't know if that's just technicals or what, but
yeah.
What was the what kind of volume does this have? That's my question. Yeah, it had about 3 times normal volume, but was it all just on a purchase? Yeah, it's like all just from the earnings.
$12.5%.
I mean,
short interest.
I get what that Hong Chu guy is saying, because if you look at on 2020 here, like revenues go from 1857, which generated $5 in earnings, and then see, actually, this book value is skewed because of the share buybacks they're doing. So you can't look at this number like as reasonably, because it's also shown that like that's actually been really beneficial to shareholders, even though these numbers are super negative right now. The issue is if you were to delever this, this book value would drastically increase. But I will say, besides that too, though, cash flow has been negative. So it's great that they had a little bit of an earnings beat, but still, it's still negative. So I don't know. When is all this debt due? That's my next big question here.
Hey Dane, is the stream healthy?
Says it's good right now.
All right. Because mine jumped out of the live.
Mine did that earlier. I was watching it. It kicked me out, and then it came back, and then I had to like reload it. So
Okay. Yeah, let's just continue. Maybe YouTube are kicking us out.
How long have we been streaming for? Are we breaking numbers?
Yeah, I think so. A couple of hours.
Oh well. Yeah, I just want to see when is this mature? Does it say? Yeah, weighted average interest rate is 8.5% on their borrowing. So the interest rate's kind of killing. That's pretty high. I can't find what the actual maturity date is here.
I'm looking now.
I see a lot about 20. Oh, here, the credit. Oh, yeah, in December 2026. Okay, so they have a little time.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of time.
But like you said too, their cash is just constantly eaten. So yeah, they need a real turnaround because I think this is scaling down and it's definitely on the road to death. But every time that there's an earnings beat, it's not as quickly to die as people think. And anytime something doesn't die automatically, it means there's a chance that something can turn around. It gives them more time to turn it around. So I think that's why that earnings beat. Because I keep seeing that more and more with a lot of these distressed companies is everybody else kind of rules it out, but there'll be an earnings beat, which doesn't materially save the company, but it's enough that they're not going to go bankrupt. And we got till like I just said, they got till 2026. So they have some time to work on this.
Yeah.
But no matter what, for me, it's a little expensive based on everything I see.
I agree.
I'm gonna say it just needs a turnaround because I don't see it being able to do too much here.
But if it goes back to that $9 range, could be interesting just purely based on the chart.
Yeah, my problem is like I said, for me to, I could just picture this one also going back down though. Like if like we just zoom out here, like this general trend, I don't think is stopping. But don't get me wrong, every time there's any kind of good news, this thing can really bounce. So you can still probably swing trade the heck out of this. But and we have found obviously support around $9, but I don't know, maybe the brand name is worth enough that people don't think this would die out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But there's a couple of ugly things here.
Yeah, this one's a little tough. This one's tough for me.
Yeah.
I'll skip the old Malibu boats. We'll go to Gray Television because was this the one that this had a really rough day, right?
Yeah, they had a rough day on Friday.
Yeah, we actually touched 52-week low.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna close out some of this stuff. If anyone's having trouble with the stream, please let us know because trying to keep everything running here. I don't know if I should contact my internet company and see if I can get faster internet. I don't know if that actually helps. I feel like that's a gimmick.
I'm not sure. I have struggled a bit lately also with the stream, so I don't know what's going on.
All right, so
Yeah,
I just want to look at the news.
We talked about them recently on the stream.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what's going on. I mean, what leads to a 22%?
It was a miss, but
I hate these articles.
Miss.
These like AI written ones. Like they're so dumb.
Hey, Don't talk bad about AI, okay?
I know, actually, that could probably they'll probably like short the heck out of BNED if I start talking crap about AI. You know?
Yeah. We don't want the robots to come after
Yeah,
us.
the robots will get us. um. You know, this is just the transcript. I mean, obviously, this is super boring to go through on a stream, so I'm not gonna go through the transcript. I'm assuming that's where the issue came from. I'm trying to find if there's like just a quick thing telling me what happened here. Maybe guidance is poor. Let me see if anything in the comments on this last article.
Pretty recent, that one.
Yeah, but this is still before that drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I remember reading this article because these guys were kind of going back and forth. So
They had some.
Sorry, what?
They had some depth news in February as well.
Yeah. So these guys have just been acquiring like local TV stations and stuff, and I think most of us know that business is in a downturn. So, but you know, it's not to say there's not value to some of these things, and obviously the rights to certain shows or areas, because no matter what, like local news stations, for instance, like our local news stations, like they kind of have like a niche market that's not going anywhere. You know, people still watch TV to watch the news and that kind of stuff. Even if it's like, you know, you can argue that some of the, you know, the local news is just kind of nonsense, but like, you know, there's still people tuning in. You still get the weather every day. There's still advertisements. So it's kind of like this, it's maybe like the last area of like cable television or even like, you know, satellite and even antenna for that matter. That's going to kind of stay around probably for a while. So it's probably pretty thin margins on a lot of this stuff, but they are worth assets. I mean, they have a moat. If you're a region's news channel, I mean, it's not like a bunch of news channels can move into an area. You can only have so many.
Yeah. And they're both the operating and free cash flow is up from 22 to 23, but I didn't go through that last report where they had a miss.
Yeah, I think what really drives this price down is for them to continue, like they've been acquiring different stations and stuff to just kind of keep their catalog up, which I think is probably the right move, but because of that, they've had to like really lever themselves. I mean, they got $6 billion in debt.
Yeah, but don't you think like a lot of these media company, they look very similar? They always have a ton of debt.
Well, like I said, it's similar to like I try and look at them like I do a utility. Like if you're in an area and no one else can move into your area, like you can run pretty levered because you don't have to worry about like competition necessarily fighting you for these things. Now, obviously, you want to pay attention to like the cost of that capital. You don't want to like make stupid acquisitions that like now you're not making any money on, which, you know, it looks like they've had kind of a rough trailing 12 months here. So hopefully they can turn that around. I mean, margins are way down. Looks like, but revenues are up. But like I said, gross margins are down. So I don't know where that money's all getting eaten up, but.
Would a near-term catalyst for these people with like the presidential election, would that have a effect?
Maybe that's a good point. Yeah, just anything that gets people to tune in, you know, to some of these channels. Now it's not just news channels. I just use that as an example. You know, they have like, it looks like a lot of like smaller like sports type channels. Just like a mix of things. So I don't know. It's a mix of products. So. It's probably going to be, you know, hard to say that one's going to improve drastically over the other, which makes me wonder that like, what's the room to run up here?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say they do pay a dividend, so that's good. If you're going to be a shareholder of this kind of thing, I think this is a good company to pay out dividends. Depends on what this payment they have to do for this debt. Like, you know, if they're able, if it makes sense to pay a dividend versus to pay that debt down. I mean, if you look at retained earnings, they've actually kept it pretty steady at almost 10%, you know, give or take.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of this debt just came from these really large acquisitions. So they probably bought out like another media conglomerate. It would be my guess.
But also a big increase in revenue in that same time.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, if you're taking on a ton of, you know, more stations, obviously your overall revenue is going to increase. But the issue here then is this debt.
Yeah. And do you know about these? Like, are they big?
What do you mean?
Have you heard about them before in the States?
No, because it's not like it's not like there's like gray television and that's like someone I'm watching. Like these guys just own a bunch of channels. I've probably watched their channels before. You know what I mean? But like, I probably you unless like at the end of like shows and stuff they tell you that's who owns them. Like you don't even know.
Yeah.
And like I said, if it's all local stuff, then they're not going to really advertise themselves. Number one, they're not going to spend money on advertising their name.
Yeah.
You know, just as a swing trade, though, $6 mark looks pretty interesting.
I saw they had something called political revenue.
Yeah, well, like you said, that's probably has to do with whoops. Actually, this is the yeah, well, I mean, sorry guys, you know, I would like to have gone through this transcript here, but you know, as we're running out of time here too, I don't want to bore you guys and read through this, but this will give me a much better idea. So this is a case where you're definitely going to want to pull up a transcript so you can understand the company a little bit better, what management's saying. If you wanted to swing trade this or something, I would think that would be a great place to start because that'll give you an idea, like, are they realistically going to improve things over the next, you know, year or so? Or are we looking like we're kind of fumbling and you know, the overall trend of TV losing money slowly over time is continuing and that they're trying to just fight that. And then the other thing, obviously, is, like I said, pay attention to the debt, figure out what the interest is. You know, pretty quickly you can go in, even if you just look at the recent 10K, which was just filed. So this is all new information. So obviously this filing must have been bad. It's pretty simple. The filing must have been really bad because so I mean a lot of these assets are just in the actual broadcast licensing. A lot of it's in goodwill, so they spent a lot to get those rights to those. They have a lot of deferred income taxes, which I don't know what that's about. Oh, they have preferred shares? I didn't know that.
No,
yeah,
I didn't know that either.
They do.
Yeah, okay.
So that's another thing, guys. Always check to see if there's preferred, because if there's preferred, they're paying out that $52 million in dividends every year. So that's a lot of cash they're spending. I'm not necessarily saying anything against preferred, but they're paying that so as the common shareholder, you're not getting that. You're not getting as much as a dividend holder. So
yeah.
I'm not saying that in their case, I don't think preferred's necessarily like a bad option to have because it limits how much has to be just straight up debt, and then it can help with your like covenants. And obviously too, if it's preferred shares and you have like a bad quarter, you don't have to pay the preferred dividend. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay it. So it's kind of like the big negative of that. But I mean, they got a lot of outstanding notes. 4.75, 5.375. So the actual rates on them aren't too bad. What's their revolving credit? Where's that one? This is their borrowing availability under it. I mean, they got a lot going on here. There's a lot of notes. There's a lot of loans. So I mean, they're paying a lot in interest. So it's just kind of the way it's ran. And you can see there's going to be certain years here where they're going to have to restructure because there's just a lot there. And these guys run without any cash, really. I mean, you know, their cash is at -12 right now. So
Yeah.
it's obviously a little risky. Just the way they've been doing it. Like I said, they could pull back money from preferred. They could obviously resell off assets. The only problem is, like, I feel like when you sell off an asset to try and do something like that, like other companies coming in here know and they can buy it for cheaper. So you spend all this money and you waste it all on goodwill, and then you don't get that money back. So I think it's got to get cheaper for me. It's still a little too high for me. And I know it's trading, and I know, you know, you can argue $6. It'll probably bounce. Like and be a double off $6. But just for me and my margin of safety, where I'm going to go heavy into something like that, this one's tough. Not to say it can't bounce. I mean, I don't think it's dead, and the debt's not due till 2026, really.
Yeah, they have some time on that.
They got plenty of time. They could. I mean, this would obviously adversely affect the stock price. They could cut the dividend, so they have options. All right, I'm just going to update this in the old database here. Oh, I just looked at these guys. It's really just off that bounce, really. I'm going to drop this down a little bit, though. I don't even know what this number doesn't really matter. I don't really worry about that. Yeah, last time I said needs to cut dividend. Yeah, so I don't know. All right, I probably got to get going, Johnny.
Yeah, that's okay. We have had a long one today. Just a comment on GTN. Like if that breaks below 6, and you see an insider, because there hasn't been a lot of insiders here.
Yeah, yeah, that's the kind of catalyst I'd be looking for in something like this. And if I did see GTN pop up with an insider, especially like this Richard Lee guy, if you look here, he's been purchasing, but it's been small amounts. If he took a big purchase, that would interest me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so far, there's been lacking a bit of that.
Yeah, nothing too impressive just yet.
But all the buys are at higher prices, so you might see some if they also look at it as cheap, and they have been buying at 8 and 10. They might want to average down as well.
True. All right, well, want to thank everybody for tuning in. Appreciate all you guys. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Plan on doing my stream on Tuesday again, so I'll be on 7:30 Eastern time.
You're gonna do Tuesday this week too?
Yeah, I think I should be able to do Tuesday. I don't think I have anything that needs me to change anything up. Are you good for Thursday?
No. Yeah, all good.
All right. Hopefully we can maybe get some more news on BNED. Earnings and stuff are starting to come up for some of the companies that we're interested. So obviously we're going to be all over those.
Yeah, we are getting close to March.
Yeah.
What isn't it a thing called March Madness?
Oh yeah, for college basketball.
Is it basketball?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sporting events. But it's the top 64 teams in college basketball. They all play a single elimination tournament. But the first 4 days, there's so many. It's 30 games going on, so it's just crazy.
Okay.
But everybody does a bracket, and you try and guess who will win the whole thing. It's just something to do, but it makes it interesting. The games are really good. A lot of kids, it's some of their final games that they get to play for college. So everyone's kind of giving it their all. So it's fun.
Nice.
And the games go on all day, so you could literally watch like all day if you wanted.
All right. I have the
All right,
channel,
guys,
so I might tune in.
What's that? Yeah, it'll
No,
be
I
on.
have-
It'll be on at all times. You'll be able to even tune in even on your time.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the guy who subscribed. We really appreciate everyone who follows us and tune in and chat with us. It's what the stream is about.
Yeah, we appreciate it because you know, even having just some of you guys just bounce some ideas off, so we're not just sitting here rambling. But,
Yeah.
But all right, guys.
Maybe
have a
we
good one.
do anyway sometimes.
Johnny, have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.
See you.